She held an eyebrow razor in one hand, eyes locked on $1 million couture gown. Without a second thought, she slashed into it. Bold, precise, unstoppable. In the frenzy, her assistant's arm was accidentally cut, but she didn't even blink. Caught in a creative high, she lifted the blade and said something that stunned everyone. "Fabrics, give me red," like that. That was her, the legendary Baroness of Fashion, a woman both feared and worshipped in the industry. Known as the devil in heels, she ruled the runway like a queen. But who would have guessed this icon, standing at the very top, would one day be outshined by a nobody, her own assistant. Her name? Estella. Born with a striking half-black, half-white head of hair, she'd been branded a weirdo since childhood. When she wore her own designs to school, her bold looks, way ahead of the trend, only earned her ridicule. They gave her a nickname meant to mock her, Cruella. At first, Estella tried to fit in, but it didn't take long for her to learn the truth. When the world bullies you, kindness gets you nowhere. So she fought back hard. One by one, she laid waste to her tormentors. And of course, it landed her in the principal's office, over and over again. But nothing stopped her. Her war with the bullies raged on, and her school record grew darker by the day. Eventually, the school had had enough. The principal prepared to expel her. But before that could happen, Estella's mom, Catherine, beat him to it. She pulled Estella out and gave that smug principal a taste of his own medicine. Estella's school days were over. To turn things around, Catherine decided they'd head to London for a fresh start. On the way, she put on her finest dress and drove to a grand estate, hoping to ask a mysterious figure for help. Alone, a miracle, anything. She told Estella to stay in the car and be good. But the young Cruella? She wasn't one to sit still. Soon, she was sneaking through the shadows, drawn to a striking woman in a fur coat and chiffon gown. Estella followed her right into a dazzling golden ballroom, hiding under a serving cart. And that's when she realized she had crashed a full-blown fashion show. But just as she was completely mesmerized, her little dog suddenly darted out from under the serving cart. She rushed after it, only to be spotted and yanked out by the butler. And things were about to get worse. The Baroness's 3 Dalmatians had locked onto her, their eyes sharp, their growls deep. They charged. Terrified, Estella turned and ran, bolting through the grand hall and out into the backyard, only to stumble upon something she wasn't supposed to see. Her mother, Catherine, speaking with the Baroness. Estella quickly scaled a low garden wall and narrowly escaped the snarling dogs. But just as she thought she was safe, the Dalmatians spun around and charged straight at her mom, and the next second, they pushed her right off the cliff. Estella froze, completely shattered. It was all her fault. At least, that's what she believed. She'd gotten her mother killed. But there was no time for grief. This place wasn't safe. She had to get out fast. She ran like hell, dodging through hedges and gravel paths, finally leaping into the back of a passing delivery truck. Just like that, she was alone in the chaos of London. Still clinging to hope, Estella went to the place she and her mother had agreed on, Regent's Park, by the fountain. But when she got there, her mother was gone. Her necklace, gone. She curled up beside her dog, tears pouring down her face, sobbing like her heart might break apart. Eventually, exhausted from crying, she drifted off into a restless sleep. By the time she woke, 2 scrappy, street-smart boys stood nearby, watching her. They were clearly runaways, just like her. Before she could even decide whether to trust them, the sound of a police whistle pierced the air. Without thinking, Estella bolted after the boys. They raced through alleyways and back streets until they reached a rundown, abandoned house. The boys thought they'd shaken her, but the next moment, Estella appeared right behind them. "That was close. Did we lose her? What do you think?" Jasper, the taller of the two, was immediately impressed by her quick thinking, and when he learned she'd just lost her mother, he made a bold offer. "Join us. We pull job. You've got the hands, the brains, but let's be honest, you don't have many options. If you want to survive, you stick with us." Estella said nothing. Then, quietly, she took off her hat, revealing that unmistakable half-black, half-white hair. The boys stared, speechless. But soon after, Estella dyed her hair a low-key shade of deep red, hiding her true self, and stepped into an entirely new life. Gone was the girl clinging to a dream. In her place stood a master thief, calm and collected. On a crowded bus, she casually slipped a wallet from a man's coat, dropped it to the floor, and without missing a beat, her dog picked it up and slid it straight into Horace's umbrella. Flawless teamwork. 0 witnesses. A perfect score. And just like that, Estella was no longer just a girl. She was the ghost of something greater, and something far more dangerous. All these years, Estella never gave up on her dream. She designed countless dazzling outfits, not only to satisfy her passion for fashion, but also to give her team an edge in their heists. By now, she was the brains of the operation, the heart of the crew. But deep down, something didn't feel right. Was this it? Was she really going to spend her life as just a thief? Her partners saw the change before she did. On her birthday, Jasper handed her an envelope. Inside was a job offer from the most fashionable department department store in London. He had even secretly polished up her resume to help her land the gig. Estella was deeply touched. That night, she returned to the fountain where she'd once cried for her mother. Now, with tears of a different kind in her eyes, she looked up at the stars and whispered, "Mom, I'm getting closer." The next morning, Estella put on her most stylish outfit and marched into the department store with hope in her heart. But reality didn't care. Her first job? A janitor. Her daily task? Mop floors and clean bathrooms. She kept looking for a chance to show the manager her designs, but every time, she got shut down cold. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't even get close to the display floor. Then one night, while working late, Estella stumbled upon a few dusty bottles of liquor in a supervisor's office. She hadn't pulled a stunt in ages, but old habits die hard. She cracked one open, took a drink, and another, and before long, she was passed out drunk. Somewhere in that drunken haze, she stared at the hideous store window display, and then, BM, inspiration hit. Drunk or not, she grabbed whatever material she could find, and gave the window a complete makeover. By the time the sun rose, Estella was curled up asleep inside the display. That's when the shouting began. The manager nearly exploded when he saw what she'd done. He yelled, threatened to fire her on the spot, maybe even call the cops. But before he could finish, the front door swung open. In walked her, the Baroness, the most powerful woman in fashion, a legend. Every designer in the city dreamed of working with her. She stopped in her tracks, pointed straight at the transformed window, and asked, "Who did this?" The manager scrambled. "It's just some dirty girl I felt sorry for. Gave her a job. She clearly didn't appreciate it. She's already fired." Everyone held their breath. And then, plot twist, the Baroness smiled. "This window is the best thing I've seen in 10 years. She snapped her fingers. Her assistant stepped forward and handed Estella a business card. "Be at work tomorrow, 5:30 a.m. Estella, still pinned on the desk from the earlier scolding, couldn't move her arms, so she did the only thing she could. She reached forward and clamped her teeth around the life-changing business card, the ticket to her destiny, clenched between her jaws. The next morning, Estella arrived on time at the Baroness's fashion house. The moment she stepped in, she was stunned. Luxurious decor, breathtaking designs on every wall, and upstairs, a full-blown fashion factory, buzzing with energy. Designers rushed around with fabric and sketches. This was the world she dreamed of. The Baroness gave a single command, and instantly, the entire studio shifted into high gear. Estella didn't dare slack off. She threw herself into the work with everything she had. But when the Baroness reviewed the designs, she shook her head one by one. None of them impressed her, not even close. That evening, frustrated and restless, Estella wandered into a small vintage boutique, and there, she met Baron, the owner, a man with wild style and untamed charm. They clicked instantly. Two artists cut from the same rebellious cloth. With his influence and her growing skills, Estella's designs got bolder, better, and the Baroness began to take notice. What started as grunt work turned into privilege. Soon, Estella was the Baroness's right hand. She attended elite fashion events, rubbed shoulders with the rich and ruthless. It felt like the door to her dream world had finally swung open. One night, she returned to that old fountain and whispered up to the stars, "Mom, I'm so close now. I can feel it." But fate was about to pull the rug out from under her. One day, a necklace slipped from the Baroness's neck, and the second Estella saw it, her heart stopped. It was the necklace, the one her mother wore the night she died at the mansion. She froze. Then the Baroness said something that sent a chill down Estella's spine. She claimed the necklace was hers, a family heirloom that was once stolen by a former employee. But the fool returned it, and ended up falling off a cliff, ruining her winter gala in the process. What infuriated her the most, she said, was that the woman had a child. The Baroness sneered. "What a pathetic excuse for a mother." And just like that, she disappeared for her usual 9-minute power nap. Estella stood there shaking. That night at the fountain, her mother had been meeting the Baroness. And now she knew. That woman didn't fall off that cliff. She was pushed. Estella made a choice. She wasn't just going to take back the necklace. She was going to take everything. During the Baroness's 9-minute nap, Estella mapped out the entire studio's security layout. Then she rallied her crew. A grand black and white masquerade ball was coming up. The perfect opportunity. Jasper snuck in through the sewers to monitor the cameras. Horace, disguised as an exterminator, slipped into the venue with his hideous little dog as cover. The Baroness arrived, flanked by her iconic trio of Dalmatians. Even the same bodyguard from that night 10 years ago was back. It was like deja vu, only this time, Estella was ready. And then, she appeared. Cruella, wrapped in a white cloak, she made her entrance like a storm. She smashed a wine glass to draw every eye in the room, then calmly sipped champagne, lit a match handed to her by a waiter, and set her own cloak on fire. It burned away in a flash, revealing a blazing red gown underneath, and that unforgettable black and white hair. The room went dead silent. No one had ever seen anything like it. In the chaos, Jasper and Horace made their way to the vault, only to find it empty. At the same time, Cruella realized the truth. The necklace was around the Baroness's neck. Time for Plan B. Horace flipped a tray full of live rats. Swarms of them scattered through the ballroom, sending guests into a frenzy. Even the Queen of Couture, the Baroness herself, screamed in panic. In that moment, Cruella lunged, snatched the necklace from her neck, and tossed it to the dog. The little guy bolted with it in his mouth. The Baroness knew something was wrong. She whistled sharply. And just like 10 years ago, the 3 Dalmatians sprinted into action. That sound, that whistle, triggered something buried deep inside Cruella. Memories came flooding back. That night, by the cliff, it wasn't an accident. Her mother was murdered. The rage inside her exploded, but there was no time to grieve. She and her crew made a hasty escape, with Estella behind the wheel. Problem was, Estella could barely drive. The car zigzagged wildly through the streets, but somehow, they managed to shake off the pursuers. Back at home, Estella collapsed into bed, mind racing, memories, lies, rage, and then, clarity. Her eyes locked in with a cold, steady fire. They say grief has 5 stages: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. But I'd like to add one more: revenge. To kick off her revenge plan, Estella turned to the only person from her childhood she could still trust, her old friend, now a reporter. The moment the journalist looked into Estella's eyes, she saw a spark of the brave, fearless girl she once knew. Without hesitation, she agreed to help. With her reporter friend handling media exposure, Jasper and Horace took on a more hands-on task. They pulled off a sneaky little dog napping at the local pet shop. Yep, they captured the Baroness's 3 Dalmatians. Why? Because one of them had swallowed the missing necklace, but no one knew which one. Meanwhile, Estella went straight to Baron, no sugarcoating. I want to create art and stir up some trouble. You in? Baron didn't even blink. Of course he was in. Chaos was his love language. Now that all the pieces were in place, Estella was ready to launch her ultimate plan. Not just to destroy the Baroness's career and reputation, but to shatter the one thing she clung to most: her ego. Estella began publicly embracing her alter ego, Cruella, the black and white devil in heels. By day, she was the obedient and humble Estella, quietly working in the shadows. But by night, she became Cruella, a dazzling force of fashion and rebellion, stealing the spotlight at every event. The press couldn't get enough of her. Headlines screamed her name. Photos of her outfits were everywhere. And for the first time, the Baroness felt threatened. Desperate to reclaim her throne, the Baroness began copying Cruella's style, even debuting a so-called new collection. But she wasn't ready for what came next. On the night of the Baroness's big reveal, Cruella showed up like royalty, in a gown made entirely of trash. She literally rolled up in a garbage truck, stepped out in a dress stitched from the city's scraps, and still looked like she belonged on the cover of Vogue. The crowd went wild. The Baroness? She was furious. Knowing her enemy was about to snap, Cruella carefully baited her next trap. She deliberately designed a new collection in plain sight of the security cameras, practically begging the Baroness to steal her ideas. And just as planned, the Baroness took the bait. She selected that exact design as one of 12 for her next big show. Cruella's crew kicked into action. Horace delivered some custom metal decorations, which were actually moth cocoons. After an all-night assembly session, the final piece was ready, and the Baroness, seeing the finished gown, was convinced it would blow Cruella out of the water. That very night, Jasper and Horace staged a fake break-in at the fashion house. They didn't steal a thing, except for one unfortunate guard's nose hair, just enough to trigger the alarm and make the Baroness panic. Predictably, she had all 12 dresses locked away in her secure vault. Show night arrived. The audience was packed. Anticipation was high, but there was one small problem. The vault wouldn't open. In a frenzy, the Baroness ordered the security cut the locks. The second the door swung open, bam! A tidal wave of moths burst from the vault, swarming the entire venue and destroying every last dress. The fashion show turned into a full-blown disaster. The Baroness's jaw dropped. Her masterpiece? Ruined. Her dignity? Gone. And Cruella? She was downstairs, throwing her own fashion rave. Fireworks, rock music, and pure chaos. She lit up the party like a comet, strutting through the crowd as her legend grew. Even the Baroness's own staff couldn't take their eyes off her. But the celebration didn't last. Exhausted and exhilarated, Cruella returned home, only to find the Baroness waiting for her, flanked by her guards. She stood with a cold, fake smile. Jasper and Horace had already been captured, tied up tight. Seeing her friends in danger, Cruella surrendered. They strapped her to a chair, and the Baroness, now fully unhinged, set fire to all her designs. With a cruel smirk, she whispered, "Bye, Cruella!" Flames roared. Smoke filled the room. Her loyal dog barked and clawed at the ropes, trying to free her, but it was no use. The fire raged on, and Cruella passed out in the inferno. News of her death spread like wildfire. Cruella, the black and white witch, dies in fire. The city mourned the fall of a fashion icon gone too soon. But was she really gone? But Cruella didn't die in that fire. She slowly regained consciousness in a mysterious room. It turned out the Baroness's loyal old butler had risked everything to save her from the flames, and secretly brought her to safety. But that wasn't all. He also handed her the necklace that had once been swallowed by one of the Dalmatians. Cruella took the necklace and gently twisted the gem. Click! A tiny key popped out. Using the key, she unlocked an old antique chest, and inside was a secret that changed everything. Cruella was the Baroness's biological daughter. The butler let out a heavy sigh and revealed the truth. He'd been there the day Cruella was born, but because of her striking black and white hair, the Baroness considered her a bad omen and ordered him to get rid of the baby. Unable to go through with it, he secretly gave the child to the kindest maid in the house, Catherine, the woman Cruella had always known as her real mother. The truth hit Cruella like a thunderbolt. Devastated, she ran to the fountain where she used to talk to her mother and whispered, "I'm Cruella, born brilliant, born bad, and a little bit mad. I'm not like her. I'm better. Anyway, revenge and destroy. But I do love you. Always." With her mind made up, Cruella got back in the game. She stormed the police station in a truck, busted Jasper and Horace out of jail, and over dinner, finally told them the whole truth. They were shocked, but stood by her without hesitation. That's when Cruella hatched her boldest plan yet. The Baroness was hosting a grand charity gala that weekend. It would be the perfect stage for her revenge. Their mission? Get every guest's exact measurements, and give them a custom-made gift they'd never forget. A one-of-a-kind designer outfit. Of course, getting all those measurements? That was a job for Jasper and Horace. Meanwhile, Cruella teamed up with the fashion wizard Artie downstairs to create a series of jaw-dropping looks. The Baroness, meanwhile, felt something was off. Deep down, she knew Cruella was still alive, so she ordered her guards to lock down the gala. She was determined to capture her once and for all. The night of the gala arrived. Limousines rolled in. Guests poured out in glamorous attire. But something was strange. One guest with iconic black and white hair was immediately tackled by security. Wrong person. Then another showed up, also a fake. Soon, the entire ballroom turned into a swirling sea of Cruellas. Everyone was dressed in black and white. Everyone had that signature hairstyle. The Baroness was losing it. This chaos? All part of Cruella's plan. She had made all the outfits, added the wigs, and had them signed under the Baroness, all in honor of the infamous Cruella. While the Baroness stumbled through the sea of impersonators, the real Cruella was already inside, quietly weaving through the crowd like a ghost. She even managed to swipe the Baroness's signature dog whistle. Then, Cruella slipped away into a fitting room. Off came the wig. Her fiery red pixie cut was back. She put on thick-rimmed glasses, transforming once again into the obedient little assistant, Estella. Luring the Baroness out to the cliffside, Cruella stayed calm, but the Baroness, being the Baroness, tried the same old trick, whistling for the Dalmatians to attack. Only this time, it didn't work. The dogs had bonded with Cruella, and they no longer obeyed her. Then Cruella dropped the bombshell, pulling out the necklace and opening it to reveal the key. "This is my birth certificate. Hello, Mother." Stunned, the Baroness switched tactics. She pretended to repent, shedding crocodile tears and begging for a hug. Cruella leaned in, only for the Baroness to shove her off cliff. The guests gasped in horror. The Baroness claimed Cruella had jumped, but it was too late. Just as the police moved to arrest her, Cruella floated back down from the sky like a phoenix. Her dress? A hidden parachute. She never laid a hand on the Baroness. Yet her revenge was complete. Poetic justice. She took the Dalmatians with her. They were loyal to her now. And with the Baroness imprisoned, Cruella inherited the entire estate. She officially declared Estella dead, and from that day forward, she lived as Cruella. The grand mansion, the legacy, the fashion empire, it was all hers now. And as she walked through the halls with her head held high, even the butler, who once served the Baroness, now bowed to her. Cruella had risen. And the fashion world? It was now her playground. She was no longer just a name. She was a legend. Some people say Cruella has a split personality, but honestly, I think that red-haired assistant is the truest version of herself. She was once just a simple, kind girl whose biggest dream was to design clothes that would take people's breath away. Getting praise made her happier than hitting the jackpot. But fate played a cruel joke on her. The very person who admired her talent was the same enemy who caused her mother's death. Cruella, the black and white witch, was her armor, built to protect herself. The heavy makeup, the wild hair, just a mask to hide her vulnerability. The Baroness and Cruella are like two sides of a mirror, reflecting two completely different lives. One dazzling on the outside but hollow inside, ultimately heading for destruction. The other, despite darkness, always reaching for the light. What shapes our fate isn't where we come from, or what we face, but the choices we make in our hearts. As long as you hold kindness in your soul, and stand strong and brave, no hardship can ever bring you down. If you enjoyed this story, story? Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more awesome movie breakdowns, and drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts.